The Salem witch trials are probably something you've studied in a previous class, but with this unit, we're really going to explore them in depth. The trials occurred in 1692, but they do still live on in our pop culture today. When we think Salem in America, we automatically think witches. The witches from the movie Hocus Pocus were from Salem, and the cat from Sabrina the Teenage Witch, his name is Salem. So it still is in our national consciousness. It's very much still a part of our pop culture and still relevant to our knowledge today. So, what was the Salem witch trials? It was a witch panic that swept through Essex County, Massachusetts in 1692. And Essex County is located just above Boston, if you want to put that in your mental map. Um, the witch trials began in Salem Village, but they quickly spread to surrounding towns. They didn't just stay in the small village, they went to other towns such as Salem Town, Andover, and later on Boston. And in the course of the trials, over 150 women and men were formally charged with witchcraft. There were more who were accused, but they weren't actually charged. And not all of those who were charged with witchcraft actually awaited trial, because the trials were suspended before they got through everybody. But those who were tried, 19 people were found guilty and were hanged, and another man was pressed to death because they were trying to get a plea out of him. He refused to enter a plea of guilty or not guilty, and they put heavy stones on top of him to try to get him to enter a plea, but he didn't. He died in the process. Okay, so how did the witch trials start? It started when Elizabeth Parris, the 9-year-old daughter of Salem Village's pastor named Samuel Parris, she began to experience fits in January of 1682. And when we say fits, we mean convulsions, kind of like a seizure. And she also experienced auditory and visual hallucinations. And soon other young girls began to fall to the same illness. They said they were being tortured by something, they didn't know what, and they experienced these seizure type symptoms and the hallucinations as well. And their families brought in this doctor, William Griggs, and he didn't believe that the girls were afflicted by a physical illness. They thought that the girls were under an evil hand, which means that they were being tortured by Satan or demons, or maybe a witch who was operating under the influence of Satan or a demon. And they pressured the girls who were afflicted by these illness to name the people who were afflicting them. And eventually the girls named 3 women: Tituba, who was Samuel Parris's slave; Sarah Good, a homeless beggar; and Sarah Osborne, who was an elderly, impoverished woman. And these 3 women were brought before the local magistrates. Magistrates were the judges, that's what you called judges at that time, and they were interrogated. And during their interrogation, Sarah Good and Sarah Osborne denied being witches. They said that the girls were mistaken. But Tituba, she confessed. She said that the devil came to me and bid me serve him. And she described these fantastic images and experiences that she had been through. She said that the devil had called her to go across Massachusetts to harm people. In exchange, she got these supernatural powers. And in her confession, she also named Sarah Good and Sarah Osborne and said that there were up to 7 other witches out there who were harming people. So all 3 women, Tituba, Sarah Good, and Sarah Osborne, were put in jail to await trial, and the magistrates began to search for the other witches who Tituba had said were out there. The afflicted girls and eventually people from neighboring towns continued to name witches. They thought that this was a growing issue for Salem and Massachusetts, that there were just more and more witches, and so they just kept searching for them. And you might be wondering, witches, like that's something that's from a fairy tale. But Salem wasn't the first witch panic in North America, and the Salem witch trials were actually very, very mild when compared to those that occurred in Europe in earlier times. We have to understand that they were in a different mindset. Europeans and also Native Americans in North America, they all believed that the world was filled with supernatural forces that influenced the natural world. They were very much of a spiritual and religious mindset, and if they could believe in God, of course they could believe in Satan and the influence that he could have. They believed that Satan gave people the power to harm others in exchange for their loyalty, and that's where witches came from. Okay, so we're going to explore the Salem witch trials more in depth when we get to class. I have a lot of activities that have to do with the primary resources available. For the Salem witch trials, a lot of the interrogation transcripts survive. But for now, what I want you to do is look at this image and describe what you see. I'm going to upload it to the voice thread and have you comment on it there.